In a world of wealth and power, one impulsive moment can change everything.
The next woman who walks through that door, I'll marry her.
Words spoken in anger that would soon be put to the test.
You want to marry a delivery girl?
No, I want to marry someone who doesn't lie to me, manipulate me, or fake a smile for my money.
A powerful CEO and a hard-working delivery girl, brought together by fate and a desperate bargain. But in this dangerous game of pretend, there was just one rule that couldn't be broken.
I have one condition. Don't fall in love with me.
A rule that would prove impossible to keep. Before we begin this emotional journey, we'd love to know, where are you watching from tonight? Drop your city in the comments below. Will Veronica's heart remain guarded, or will she risk everything for love? Stay with us to find out. Rain pounded against the windows of Voss Enterprises' towering headquarters. Inside the luxurious conference room on the top floor, Elliot Voss drummed his fingers against the polished mahogany table. At 30 years old, he was one of the youngest CEOs in the city, with dark hair always perfectly styled and suits that cost more than what most people made in a month. Tonight, his handsome face was tight with frustration. Another date arranged by his family had ended in disaster. The woman had spent the entire evening dropping hints about vacation homes and jewelry brands she favored. It was the third such date this month. "Elliot, you're late," said Martha Voss, his aunt, as she adjusted her designer glasses. Even at 60, she commanded attention with her steel-grey bob and calculating eyes. "The board is waiting." "I had a prior engagement," Elliot said flatly. "Another date?" Martha's thin lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Did this one meet your impossible standards?" Elliot didn't answer. He took his seat at the head of the table, nodding to the board members, all men and women twice his age, watching him like hawks. "Let's begin," he said. Martha cleared her throat. "Before we start, I'd like to remind everyone of the company bylaws, specifically the marriage clause." Elliot's jaw tightened. "That won't be necessary." "I disagree," Martha said, sliding a document across the table. "Your father was very clear. The CEO of Voss Enterprises must be married by their 31st birthday or control passes to the next eligible family member." She smiled again. "That clause is outdated," Elliot argued. "But legally binding," countered Martha. "You have until December 31st. That's just 6 months away." The board members exchanged glances. They all knew Martha had been trying to take control ever since Elliot's father died 3 years ago. "I'm working on it," Elliot said through gritted teeth. "Are you? Because all I see is you rejecting perfectly suitable women from good families, women who understand our world." Elliot stood up suddenly, his chair rolling back. Frustration and anger boiled over. "You want me to marry? Fine. The next woman who walks through that door, I'll marry her." The room fell silent. Martha's eyes widened. "You can't be serious." "I am." Elliot's voice was cold. "I'm tired of these games. The next woman who walks in, she'll be my wife. How's that for solving the problem?" Just as the words left his mouth, there was a knock at the conference room door. The board members turned their heads. Martha's mouth opened slightly. The door swung open. A young black woman stood in the doorway, soaking wet from the rain. She wore jeans, sneakers, and a red jacket with Sweet Dreams Bakery embroidered on the chest, and she held a large white bakery box in her hands. "Delivery for Voss Enterprises," she said, looking confused. At the silent faces staring back at her, Elliot froze. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Martha's cool voice broke the silence. "Well, it looks like we have our bride." The delivery woman, Veronica Tate, looked from face to face, trying to figure out what was happening. "I'm sorry, am I interrupting? Something?" The security guard said to bring this up. Elliot snapped out of his shock. "No, you're fine, just leave it on the side table." As Veronica set down the box, Elliot couldn't help noticing how she moved with quiet confidence, despite being clearly out of place in the luxurious boardroom. "Someone needs to sign," she said, holding out a small electronic device. Martha stepped forward with a predatory smile. "Mr. Voss will handle that. After all, he has something important to discuss with you." "Aunt Martha," Elliot warned. "What?" "You made a statement, a promise in front of witnesses." Martha's voice was silky. "Unless your word means nothing." The board members watched the exchange with interest. Veronica looked confused but patient, still holding out the device for a signature. "I'll sign," Elliot said, taking the device from her. Their fingers brushed briefly. He noticed her nails were short and practical, no polish. As he signed, he asked, "What's your name?" "Veronica. Veronica Tate." "I'm Elliot Voss." "I know," she said simply. "Your name's on the building." Martha stepped closer. "Miss Tate, would you be willing to stay for a few minutes? Mr. Voss has a business proposition for you." Veronica checked her watch. "I have 3 more deliveries tonight. We'll compensate you for your time," Martha insisted, "and pay for the other deliveries. It's a matter of some urgency." Veronica hesitated. "I'd need to call my cousin. It's her bakery." "Of course," Martha said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Use my office, right through there." After Veronica stepped out, Elliot turned on his aunt. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "Holding you to your word," Martha replied coolly. "You said you'd marry the next woman who walked in." She walked in. One of the board members, an older man named James, cleared his throat. "Elliot, you did make the statement." "It wasn't serious." "It sounded serious to me," Martha said. "And wouldn't it be interesting if the press heard how the great Elliot Voss makes promises he doesn't intend to keep, especially about something as sacred as marriage?" Elliot glared at her. "You're manipulating the situation." "I'm taking advantage of an opportunity," Martha corrected. "Besides, what's the alternative? Marry someone from my list of candidates, women who are only interested in your money and status." "And you think she's different?" Elliot asked, nodding toward the office where Veronica was making her call. "I think she's exactly what you need," Martha said. "Someone completely outside our world. Someone who won't challenge your control of the company. Someone who will satisfy the letter of the law without interfering with the spirit of your work." Elliot was surprised. "You're actually supporting this?" Martha's expression hardened. "Don't misunderstand me. I still believe I should be running this company. But if I can't have it, I'd rather it stay with family than be torn apart by some gold digger with a law degree. This delivery girl is perfect. She'll be grateful for whatever you give her, and she'll be easy to manage." Elliot felt disgust rise in his throat, but before he could respond, Veronica returned. "My cousin says it's fine. The other customers can wait." Her dark eyes moved between Elliot and Martha. "Now what's this about?" "Let's talk privately," Elliot said, gesturing toward his office across the hall. Once inside, he closed the door and motioned for Veronica to take a seat in one of the leather chairs facing his desk. Instead of sitting behind the desk, he took the chair beside her. "I apologize for the strange situation," he began. Veronica's expression was guarded, but not intimidated. "What's going on? Your aunt mentioned a business proposition?" Elliot studied her for a moment. She was beautiful, but not in the polished, artificial way he was used to. Her beauty was natural, unforced. There was a steadiness in her gaze that he found himself respecting. "This is going to sound crazy," he warned. "Try." "Me," she said. "I've heard plenty of crazy things delivering pastries at midnight." Despite himself, Elliot smiled. Then he explained the situation. The outdated clause in the company bylaws, his approaching deadline, his impulsive statement, and her timely arrival. When he finished, Veronica stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed, a genuine, full laugh that filled the office. "You want to marry a delivery girl?" she asked when she caught her breath. "No," Elliot said honestly. "I want to marry someone who doesn't lie to me, manipulate me, or fake a smile for my money. I want peace." The laughter faded from Veronica's face. "You're serious?" "I am." "This is insane." "I'm not disagreeing." Veronica stood up and paced the office. "Why would I ever agree to something like this?" "Financial compensation," Elliot said simply. "A lot of it." Veronica stopped pacing. "How much are we talking about?" $2 million for 1 year of marriage. After that, we divorce, and you walk away with the money. Veronica's eyes widened. $2 million. Tax-free, Elliot added, and a reasonable monthly allowance during the marriage itself. "What's the catch?" Veronica asked, her eyes narrowing. "What would I have to do?" "Nothing inappropriate," Elliot said quickly. "We would live in the same residence," My penthouse has separate wings so you'd have your privacy. We'd attend certain public events together. Make it look convincing. That's it? That's it, Veronica shook her head. No one gives away $2 million for nothing. What aren't you telling me? Elliot respected her skepticism. The truth is, I need someone who won't try to take advantage, someone who'll stick to the agreement and leave when it's done. The women my family wants me to marry would never let go once they had a foot in the door. Veronica considered this. And why should I trust you? I don't know you. Fair point, Elliot conceded. We can put everything in a contract. Legal protections for both of us. I'd need my own lawyer. Of course. Veronica resumed pacing. This is crazy. I can't just marry a stranger. Think about what you could do with that money, Elliot suggested. $2 million can change your life. Veronica stopped by the window, staring out at the rainy city below. I have a younger brother, she said quietly. Jamal, he's 19, smart kid, but he got into some trouble last year. He's on probation now. Elliot waited, sensing there was more. He was caught trespassing on a construction site owned by, she turned to face him, by Voss Enterprises, actually. Security guards roughed him up pretty bad before calling the cops. Elliot frowned. I wasn't aware of that. Why would you be? Just another black kid in the system. There was no accusation in her voice, just resignation. Anyway, he's being harassed by those same security guards. They recognize him, follow him around. He's trying to stay clean, but they're making it hard. I could help with that, Elliot said. Make sure he's not bothered. Maybe even find him a job if he's interested. Veronica looked at him thoughtfully. You'd do that? Consider it part of the deal. She was quiet for a long moment. I still don't understand why it has to be me. There must be thousands of women who'd jump at this chance. That's exactly the problem, Elliot explained. They'd want it too much. They'd try to make it real, or they'd use it as leverage. You walked into that room by accident. You have no connection to my world. That makes you safer. So I'm a convenient nobody, Veronica said with a hint of sharpness. You're an independent person with your own life, Elliot corrected. That's what I need. Veronica returned to her chair, sitting on the edge. Let me get this straight. You want me to pretend to be your wife for 1 year, live in your penthouse, go to some parties, and then walk away with $2 million. Plus you'll help my brother. That's the offer. And what happens if one of us breaks the agreement? Financial penalties, Elliot said. But I have one condition of my own. What's that? Don't fall in love with me, he said seriously. That would complicate everything. To his surprise, Veronica laughed again. Trust me, that won't be a problem. She stood and extended her hand. I'll need to see that contract. But if everything is as you say, I think we have a deal, Mr. Voss. Elliot stood and shook her hand. Her grip was firm and confident. Call me Elliot. We are getting married after all. Elliot, she repeated, the name sounding strangely right on her lips. And I'm Veronica, not the delivery girl. Veronica, he said with a nod. Welcome to the strangest year of your life. 3 weeks later, Veronica stood in a small dressing room at City Hall, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She wore a simple white dress, nothing fancy, just something she'd found on sale. Her hair was styled in loose curls, and she'd applied a little more makeup than usual. How you look beautiful, said her cousin Layla, adjusting the small bouquet of white roses in Veronica's hands. I look like I'm making the craziest decision of my life, Veronica replied. Layla grinned. Well, that too. But hey, $2 million. Keep your voice down, Veronica warned. Remember, as far as anyone knows, this is a real marriage. Right, Layla said, waving her hand dismissively. True love, whirlwind romance, blah, blah, blah. Though I gotta say, your CEO is hot. If you don't want him, Layla, I'm just saying, rich, handsome, and he picked you out of nowhere. It's like a fairy tale. It's a business arrangement, Veronica corrected, with an expiration date. There was a knock at the door, and Jamal poked his head in. At 19, he was tall and lanky, with the same warm brown eyes as his sister. They're ready for you, sis. Veronica took a deep breath. How do I look? Jamal studied her with a serious expression. Like $1 million. Or should I say 2 million? Jamal, he grinned. Sorry, couldn't resist. But for real, you look great. And thank you for doing this for me. I'm not just doing it for you, Veronica said, though they both knew that was a major part of her decision. In the 3 weeks since she'd agreed to Elliot's proposal, things had moved quickly. She'd met with a lawyer, a good one, paid for by Elliot. The contract was solid. 1 year of marriage, $2 million upon completion, plus a monthly allowance of $10,000 during the marriage. Separate living spaces. Attendance at key social events. And most importantly, help for Jamal. True to his word, Elliot had already taken care of the security guards who'd been harassing her brother. Not only that, but he'd arranged for Jamal to interview for a tech mentorship program at Voss Enterprises. The interview was next week. It's time, Layla said, checking her watch. Veronica nodded and followed her brother and cousin out into the hallway. The plan was for a simple civil ceremony with just a few witnesses, Layla and Jamal on her side, Elliot's assistant and driver on his. Martha Voss had wanted something more elaborate, but Elliot had insisted on keeping it small. When Veronica entered the ceremony room, she saw Elliot waiting by the judge's podium. He wore a charcoal grey suit that probably cost more than her car, but his expression was what caught her attention. He looked nervous. That was unexpected. As she approached, his eyes met hers and something passed between them, a moment of recognition perhaps. Two people about to jump into the unknown together. The ceremony itself was brief. They exchanged simple gold bands. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Elliot leaned in for a light kiss, just enough to make it look real. His lips were warm against hers, the contact brief but not entirely unpleasant. And just like that, Veronica Tate became Veronica Voss. Outside City Hall, a black limousine waited to take them to a small reception at an upscale restaurant. As they settled into the back seat, Elliot turned to her. "You look beautiful," he said. "Thank you," Veronica replied, feeling suddenly shy. "You clean up pretty well yourself." They rode in silence for a moment. "Are you ready for this?" Elliot asked finally. "Once we walk into that restaurant, our public life together begins." "I think so," Veronica said. "I've memorized the story we agreed on, how we met at the bakery, started talking, and things moved quickly." "Good," Elliot nodded. "And remember, Martha will be watching closely. She's suspicious by nature. Why did she push for this marriage if she's so suspicious of me?" Elliot's expression darkened. "Because she thinks she can control you, use you. In her mind, you're a simple delivery girl who got lucky." "And what do you think I am?" Veronica asked. Elliot considered her question. "I think you're someone who knows what she wants and isn't afraid to go after it. I respect that." Before Veronica could respond, the limousine pulled up to the restaurant. Elliot stepped out first, then extended his hand to help her. As cameras flashed, there were a few paparazzi already gathered. He leaned close to her ear. "Smile," he whispered. "You've just married the most eligible bachelor in the city." Veronica put on her best smile as they walked into the restaurant. Inside, about 30 people waited. Elliot's key executives, a few family members, and some business associates. Martha Voss stood near the entrance, her critical gaze taking in every detail of Veronica's appearance. "The happy couple arrives," Martha said, her voice dripping with hidden meaning. She air-kissed Elliot's cheek, then Veronica's. "Welcome to the family, dear. What a surprising addition you are." "Thank you, Mrs. Voss," Veronica replied sweetly. "Life is full of surprises, isn't it?" Martha's smile tightened. "Indeed it is, and please call me Martha. We're family now." Throughout the reception, Veronica stayed close to Elliot, just as they'd planned. He kept a protective hand at the small of her back, guiding her through introductions. Most people were polite, if a bit confused by the sudden marriage. A few were openly curious about her background. "So you work at a bakery?" asked one woman in an expensive suit. "My cousin owns Sweet Dreams Bakery," Veronica explained. "I help with deliveries in the evenings. During the day, I work at the public library and teach art classes at the community center. 3 jobs. The woman looked surprised. "How industrious." Veronica is the hardest working person I know, Elliot interjected, his arm sliding around her waist. It's one of the things I admire most about her. The woman smiled tightly and moved on. You're good at this, Veronica murmured. So are you, Elliot replied. Just a few more hours, then we can go home. Home. The word felt strange. Earlier that day, Veronica had moved her things into Elliot's penthouse, or rather their penthouse now. She'd been overwhelmed by its size and luxury. Her entire apartment could have fit in the living room alone. By the time the reception ended, Veronica's face hurt from smiling. As they climbed back into the limousine, she kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief. That wasn't so bad, Elliot said, loosening his tie. Easy for you to say. You're used to these people. True, but you handled yourself well. The drive too. The penthouse was quiet. Veronica gazed out the window at the city lights, wondering if she'd made a huge mistake. $2 million or not, she'd just legally bound herself to a man she barely knew. When they arrived at the building, the doorman tipped his hat. Good evening, Mr. Voss, Mrs. Voss. The title sent a jolt through Veronica. Mrs. Voss. That was her now? The penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of one of the city's most exclusive buildings. As they entered, Elliot showed her to her wing once more. You have your own living room, bedroom, bathroom, and office, he explained, though she'd seen it all during the tour when she moved her things in. The kitchen and main living areas are shared, but I'm rarely home, so you'll have plenty of privacy. It's enormous, Veronica said, still not used to the space. I had some clothes delivered for you, Elliot added, gesturing to the walk-in closet. You'll need them for the events we'll attend. Feel free to exchange anything that doesn't fit your style. Veronica opened the closet door and gasped. Rows of designer dresses, suits, casual wear, and shoes filled the space. This must have cost a fortune. It's part of the arrangement, Elliot said simply. You need to look the part of Mrs. Voss when we're in public. Veronica nodded slowly. This was her new reality. Designer clothes, a luxury penthouse, a husband who was essentially a stranger. All for 1 year. I should get some sleep, she said. It's been a long day. Of course, Elliot turned to leave, then paused. Veronica? Yes? Thank you for doing this. She offered him a small smile. $2 million, remember? I should be thanking you. Elliot shook his head. It's more than that. You're helping me keep control of my company, my father's legacy. For a moment, she saw something vulnerable in his eyes, something real beneath the polished CEO exterior. Good night, Elliot, she said softly. Good night, Mrs. Voss. After he left, Veronica sat on the edge of the king-sized bed, running her hand over the silky comforter. Everything in the penthouse was the best money could buy. For the next year, she would live in luxury beyond anything she'd ever imagined. But as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, Veronica couldn't help wondering what she'd gotten herself into. She'd just married a man she didn't love, a man who had made it clear he didn't want her to love him. Don't fall in love with me, he'd said. As if that was a risk. Veronica turned on her side, watching the city lights through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Don't worry, Elliot Voss, she whispered to herself. My heart isn't part of our deal. Little did she know how difficult that promise would be to keep. Veronica woke to sunlight streaming through windows larger than her old apartment's walls. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then reality came rushing back. The marriage, the contract, the penthouse. She was Veronica Voss now, at least for the next year. She checked the time, 6:30 a.m. Early, but she was used to it. With 3 jobs, sleeping in had been a luxury she couldn't afford. Old habits died hard, after a quick shower in the marble bathroom. That was bigger than her former bedroom. She dressed in her own clothes, jeans and a simple t-shirt. The designer wardrobe could wait for public appearances. When she entered the kitchen, she was surprised to find Elliot already there, dressed in a tailored suit, reading something on his tablet while a coffee machine hummed on the counter. Good. Morning, he said without looking up. Morning, Veronica replied, feeling suddenly awkward. I didn't expect you to be up so early. I'm always up by 6, Elliot said, finally glancing at her. Coffee? Please. He poured her a cup from the sleek machine. Black, right? Veronica raised an eyebrow. How did you know? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. The background check. I ran before our arrangement. You buy coffee beans but never cream or sugar. That's thorough, Veronica said, taking the cup. The coffee was excellent, of course, probably some rare, expensive blend. I don't take chances with people I invite into my home, Elliot explained. Even contractual spouses. Veronica sipped her coffee. Find anything interesting? Nothing concerning, Elliot said, returning to his tablet. Your record is clean except for that juvenile shoplifting charge when you were 17. Veronica tensed. That was a long time ago. I know. You were trying to feed your brother after your mother lost her job. He looked up at her. I understand. Desperate measures, Veronica. She was surprised by his insight. Is there anything you don't know about me? Plenty, Elliot said. Background checks reveal facts, not the person behind them. They drank their coffee in surprisingly comfortable silence. Then Elliot stood, straightening his tie. I'll be late tonight. Board dinner. Okay, Veronica nodded. I have classes to teach at the community center anyway. Elliot paused. About your jobs, I'm keeping them, Veronica said firmly. The agreement was that I'd attend social events with you, not that I'd give up my life. Fair enough, Elliot conceded, but you don't need to work 3 jobs anymore. The monthly allowance is very generous, Veronica interrupted. But I'm not going to sit around this penthouse all day waiting for you. I like my work. Elliot studied her for a moment, then nodded. I respect that. Though you might want to reduce your hours at the bakery. The press will find it odd that my wife is making deliveries at midnight. Veronica hadn't thought of that. I'll talk to Layla. Thank you. Elliot picked up his briefcase. The housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, comes on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. She knows about our arrangement and can be trusted. Got it. One more thing, Elliot added, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small velvet box and handed it to her. For public appearances. Veronica opened the box to find a stunning diamond ring that made her simple wedding band look like a toy. This is too much, she said, staring at the sparkling stone. It's what people expect, Elliot explained. Mrs. Voss would have an impressive ring. She slipped it on beside her wedding band. It fit perfectly. How did you know my size? The same way I knew you'd take your coffee black, Elliot said with a slight smile. I'll see you tonight. Make yourself at home. After he left, Veronica wandered through the penthouse, still not quite believing this was her life now. The place was beautifully designed, but felt strangely empty, like a museum rather than a home. No personal photos, no mementos, nothing that revealed anything about the man who lived here. In the main living room, she noticed a sleek piano in the corner, its surface gleaming in the morning light. On impulse, she sat down and played a few notes. The sound was rich and perfect. She wondered if Elliot played or if it was just for show. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jamal. How's married life with Mr. Moneybags? She smiled and texted back. Weird, but the coffee is good. Don't forget your little brother when you're rich and famous, came his reply, followed by a laughing emoji. Never, she typed. How's the mentorship interview prep going? Working on it. Nervous. You'll be great. Call me later. Veronica put her phone away and headed to her room to change for her shift at the library. As she passed Elliot's home office, she noticed the door was slightly ajar. She knew she shouldn't snoop, but curiosity got the better of her. The office was as immaculate as the rest of the penthouse. A large desk faced the windows, offering a spectacular view of the city. On the desk sat a single framed photo, the only personal touch she'd seen in the entire place. It showed a younger Elliot with an older man who had to be his father. They were on a boat, both smiling. Veronica studied the photo. Elliot looked different, more relaxed, genuinely happy. It was hard to reconcile that image with the controlled, serious man she'd married. She carefully backed out of the office, closing the door behind her. It felt like she'd glimpsed something private, a hint that there was more to Elliot Voss than the cold CEO he presented to the world. Over the next few weeks, Veronica and Elliot settled into a strange routine. They rarely saw each other during the day. Elliot left early for work and returned late. Occasionally they shared breakfast, but most nights Veronica ate alone or at her cousin's place. At first, she felt like an imposter in the luxury penthouse. But gradually she began adding small touches to make it feel less sterile. A colorful throw pillow here, a small plant there. Elliot never commented on these changes, but he didn't object either. One evening, after teaching her art class, Veronica returned to find Elliot in the kitchen, staring into the open refrigerator with a perplexed expression. "Problem?" she asked, setting down her bag. "Just realizing I don't know how to cook anything that doesn't come in a microwave container," he admitted. Veronica laughed. "Seriously, you're 30 years old." "I usually eat at restaurants or order in," Elliot said, looking almost embarrassed. It seemed more efficient. Efficient maybe, sad, definitely. Veronica moved past him to look in the refrigerator. It was well stocked, probably by Mrs. Chen. "What are you in the mood for?" "You don't have to cook for me," Elliot said quickly. "I'm not offering to be your personal chef," Veronica clarified, "but I'm hungry too and I make a mean pancake dinner." "Pancakes? For dinner? Don't tell me you've never had breakfast for dinner," Veronica said, already pulling ingredients from the shelves. "Can't say that I have," Elliot admitted. "Then you're in for a treat, Mr. Voss." To her surprise, Elliot rolled up his sleeves and asked, "How can I help?" "You can measure the flour, 2 cups. Elliot looked at the bag of flour as if it might bite him. "Which measuring cup is 2 cups? Veronica stared at him. "You really don't cook, do you?" "I told you." She showed him the measuring cups, then guided him through the simple process of making pancake batter. He was a quick learner, focused and attentive, the same way, she imagined, that he approached business problems. "Now the fun part," she said, heating a pan. "Watch and learn." As she poured the first pancake, Elliot stood close behind her, watching over her shoulder. She was suddenly very aware of his presence, his height, the faint scent of his cologne, the warmth of him just inches away. "You make it look easy," he said, his voice low near her ear. "It is easy," Veronica replied, forcing her voice to remain casual. "Your turn." She handed him the spatula, and he hesitantly approached the stove. His first attempt at flipping a pancake ended with batter splattering on the stovetop. "Sorry," he said, looking genuinely dismayed. Veronica laughed. "It's just pancake batter, not a corporate disaster. Try again." His second attempt was better. By the third pancake, he was getting the hang of it. Veronica found herself enjoying the sight of the always perfect CEO making a mess in the kitchen. When they finally sat down to eat, Elliot took a bite and raised his eyebrows. "These are actually good." "Don't sound so surprised," Veronica said, drizzling maple syrup on her stack. "Cooking isn't rocket science. No, but it requires skills I never bothered to learn." Elliot took another bite. "My father believed in focusing on business above all else. Personal skills were secondary." "What about your mother?" Veronica asked. A shadow crossed Elliot's face. "She died when I was 8. Cancer." "I'm sorry," Veronica said softly. "That must have been hard." Elliot shrugged, but she could see the old pain in his eyes. "My father did his best. He wasn't very good at the emotional stuff, but he made sure I had everything I needed." "Except cooking lessons," Veronica said, trying to lighten the mood. The corner of Elliot's mouth lifted. "Except that." They ate in companionable silence for a while. "How are your jobs?" Elliot asked finally. "Still working all 3? "I cut back on the bakery deliveries," Veronica said. "Just weekends now, but I'm still at the library and the community center." "The art classes," Elliot remembered. "What do you teach?" "Basic drawing and painting to kids. Nothing fancy, but they love it." Veronica smiled at the thought of her students. "Most of them come from tough neighborhoods. Art gives them a safe space to express themselves." Elliot nodded. "That's admirable. It's not saving the world, but it matters to them." Veronica pushed her empty plate away. "What about you? Save any corporate empires today?" "Just the usual mergers and acquisitions," Elliot said dryly. "Though I did have an interesting meeting with a small tech startup. They're developing educational apps for underfunded schools. Sounds worthwhile." "It is. We're considering backing them." Elliot looked thoughtful. "Maybe they could develop something for your art classes." Veronica was surprised by the suggestion. "That would be amazing, actually. The center's budget for supplies is practically non-existent." "I'll make some calls," Elliot promised. As they cleaned up the kitchen together, Veronica found herself wondering about the man beside her. He wasn't what she'd expected. Behind the cold CEO facade was someone more complex, someone who remembered details about her work and offered to help without being asked. Later that night, before going to bed, Veronica left a small drawing on the kitchen counter, a simple sketch of Elliot flipping pancakes, his expression one of intense concentration. She signed it with a simple V and went to sleep. The next morning, the drawing was gone. She wondered if he'd thrown it away, but when she passed his office, she noticed it pinned to his bulletin board. The following weekend brought their first major public appearance as a couple, a charity gala hosted by Voss Enterprises. Veronica spent hours getting ready, with a professional stylist sent by Elliot to help with her hair and makeup. When she emerged from her room in a midnight blue gown from her new wardrobe, Elliot was waiting in the living room. He turned as she entered, and for a moment he simply stared. "Is something wrong?" Veronica asked, suddenly self-conscious. "No," Elliot said, his voice slightly rough. "You look stunning." "Thank you," Veronica said, feeling her cheeks warm. "You clean up pretty well yourself." In his black tuxedo, Elliot was undeniably handsome, but it was the way he looked at her that made her heart beat a little faster, as if he was truly seeing her for the first time. "Ready for this?" he asked, offering his arm. "As I'll ever be," Veronica replied, taking it. His arm felt solid under her hand, a steady anchor for the evening ahead. In the limousine, Elliot briefed her on who would be at the gala: board members, major clients, competitors, society figures. Veronica tried to memorize the names and connections, but it was overwhelming. "Don't worry," Elliot said, noting her expression. "Just be yourself. That's all I need." "Your aunt might disagree," Veronica pointed out. "I'm pretty sure she expects me to embarrass you." "Martha expects the worst from everyone," Elliot said dismissively. "It's how she maintains her superiority." When they arrived at the venue, an elegant hotel ballroom, cameras flashed as they walked the red carpet. Veronica gripped Elliot's arm tighter. "Smile," he murmured. "You're Mrs. Voss tonight." Inside, the ballroom was a sea of wealth and privilege. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, while waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Veronica had never seen so many designer gowns and expensive jewels in one place. "Elliot, there you are," called a woman's voice. Martha Voss approached, resplendent in a silver gown, her shrewd eyes taking in Veronica's appearance. "And Veronica, don't you look appropriate?" "Thank you, Martha," Veronica replied sweetly. "Your gown is lovely too. Very mature." Martha's smile tightened. "I see you've settled into your role nicely." "My wife is a quick learner," Elliot said, his hand moving to the small of Veronica's back in a protective gesture. "Indeed." Martha's gaze lingered on Veronica. "I hope you're finding the penthouse comfortable. It must be quite an adjustment from your previous living situation." "It's very nice," Veronica said simply, "though I'm still adding personal touches." "How charming," Martha said with a cold smile. "Well, don't let me keep you. So many people are eager to meet Elliot's surprising new bride." As Martha glided away, Elliot leaned close to Veronica's ear. "You handled that well." "I grew up with mean girls," Veronica replied. "Your aunt is just a grown-up version with better jewelry." Elliot's laugh was warm against her ear, sending an unexpected shiver down her spine. Throughout the evening, Veronica met dozens of people whose names blurred together. Most were polite but curious, clearly wondering how a delivery girl had managed to land one of the city's most eligible bachelors. Some were openly condescending, speaking to her slowly as if she might not understand big words. Through it all, Elliot stayed close, his hand rarely leaving her back or arm. When a particularly nosy society matron asked about her humble beginnings, Elliot smoothly interjected. "My wife's work ethic is one of the things I admire most about her," he said. "Not everyone understands the value of hard work these days." The woman flushed and quickly found a reason to move on. "You don't have to defend me," Veronica murmured once they were alone. "I know," Elliot said, "but I want to." Later, as they danced together, Veronica was acutely aware of Elliot's hand on her waist. the way he guided her effortlessly across the floor. "I didn't know you could dance," she said. "Ballroom dancing lessons were part of my upbringing," Elliot explained. "My father believed a good businessman should be proficient in all social graces." "What about pancake making?" she teased. Elliot's eyes crinkled at the corners. "A regrettable oversight in my education." As they swayed to the music, Veronica noticed people watching them, some with curiosity, others with envy. To them, she and Elliot must look like a real couple, maybe even in love. The thought made her uncomfortable. This wasn't real. It was a contract, a business arrangement. The way her heart beat faster when he smiled at her, that was just nerves, not attraction. Certainly not the beginnings of feelings she'd promised not to develop. "You're frowning," Elliot observed. "Just thinking about the act we're putting on," Veronica said quietly. "Everyone here probably thinks we're madly in love." "Is that so terrible?" Elliot asked, his eyes searching hers. Before she could answer, a commotion near the entrance caught their attention. A young man in a rumpled suit was arguing with security guards. "Jamal?" Veronica said in disbelief, recognizing her brother. Elliot followed her gaze. "Stay here. I'll handle this." But Veronica was already moving toward the entrance, Elliot right behind her. When they reached the doors, Jamal was being blocked by two large security guards. "I just need to talk to my sister," Jamal was saying, his voice rising. "It's important." "Let him in," Elliot commanded, and the guards immediately stepped aside. "Jamal, what's wrong?" Veronica asked, worried by her brother's agitated state. "I need to talk to you," Jamal said, glancing nervously at Elliot. "Privately." "This way," Elliot said, leading them to a small anteroom off the main ballroom. Once inside, he said, "I'll give you two a moment," and closed the door behind him. "What's going on?" Veronica demanded once they were alone. "How did you even know where I was?" Layla told me, Jamal said, pacing the small room. "I didn't know who else to turn to. Those security guards, the ones from the construction site, they're back. They followed me all day, and then tonight they came to the apartment, said they had a message for me." "What message?" "They said to tell you to mind your own business, that you should stop asking questions about Voss security practices." Jamal looked confused. "What does that mean, V? What have you been doing?" Veronica felt cold. "Nothing. I haven't been asking any questions." "Well, they seemed pretty clear it was about you." Jamal ran a hand over his close-cropped hair. "I'm worried, sis. These guys aren't playing around," Veronica thought quickly. She hadn't been asking questions, but she had mentioned the security guards to Elliot. He'd promised to take care of it. Had he actually made things worse? Did they threaten you? She asked Jamal. Not directly, but the message was pretty clear. Jamal looked her in the eyes. "What's going on, V? Is this marriage for real or is something else happening?" "It's complicated," Veronica hedged. "Complicated how?" "Because from where I'm standing, you suddenly marry one of the richest men in the city. And then I get threatened by his company's security guards. That doesn't seem like a coincidence." Before Veronica could respond, there was a knock at the door, and Elliot entered. "Is everything all right?" he asked, looking between the siblings. "No," Jamal said bluntly. "Your security guards are threatening me." Elliot's expression hardened. "Which guards? Names?" "I don't know their names," Jamal said, "but one has a scar on his cheek. The other is bald with a tattoo on his neck." "Reynolds and Diaz," Elliot said immediately. "I fired them 3 weeks ago, right after Veronica told me about the harassment." "Well, they're still wearing Voss security uniforms," Jamal countered. Elliot pulled out his phone. "This stops now. Give me a minute." He stepped outside again, already dialing. "You trust him?" Jamal asked once Elliot was gone. Veronica hesitated. "I think so. We barely know each other, but he seems sincere about helping." "This is crazy. Sis, you're living with a man you don't know who might be connected to people threatening me." "It's not like that," Veronica insisted. "Elliot's not involved. If anything, someone might be trying to sabotage him through us." "Who? Why?" "I don't know," Veronica admitted. "But the timing feels suspicious." Elliot returned, his expression grim. "Reynolds and Diaz were fired, but someone overrode the system to keep their access cards active. My head of security is handling it personally right now. They won't bother." "You again, Jamal." "How can you be sure?" Jamal asked skeptically. Because I'm having them arrested for impersonating Voss security personnel, Elliot said. And because I'm assigning a different security team to keep an eye on you, not to watch you, but to watch out for you. I don't need babysitters, Jamal protested. It's not negotiable, Elliot said firmly. Someone is using my company's name to threaten my wife's brother. That makes it my problem. The possessive "my wife" sent an unexpected warmth through Veronica. She knew it was just for show, but in that moment, Elliot's protectiveness felt real. Fine, Jamal conceded, but I want to know what's going on. The real story. Elliot looked at Veronica, a silent question in his eyes. She nodded slightly. Come to the penthouse tomorrow, Elliot told Jamal. We'll explain everything. After arranging for a car to take Jamal home, Elliot and Veronica returned to the gala. But the evening's shine had worn off for Veronica. Someone had deliberately kept those guards active, knowing they had harassed Jamal before. Someone was sending a message, but what and why? You're quiet, Elliot observed as they drove home later that night. I'm worried, Veronica admitted. This doesn't make sense. Why would anyone care about Jamal or me? It might not be about you, Elliot said thoughtfully. It might be about me. What do you mean? Elliot sighed. Not everyone is happy about our marriage. Martha, for one. She was counting on the marriage clause to give her control of the company. You think your aunt would threaten my brother? Veronica asked incredulously. I think Martha would do whatever it takes to get what she wants, Elliot said grimly. And she's not the only one. There are board members who were hoping to influence me through a strategic marriage. Now they can't. Veronica considered this. So, someone's trying to scare me off? Possibly. Or they're looking for leverage, information they could use against us. What information? Our marriage is a contract. A contract that would be void if it became public knowledge, Elliot pointed out. I'd lose control of the company and you'd lose your settlement. The reality of their situation sank in. Their arrangement wasn't just a private agreement. It had serious consequences for both of them if exposed. So what do we do? Veronica asked. We be careful, Elliot said. And we trust each other. That's the only way this works. Trust each other. The words echoed in Veronica's mind as they rode the elevator up to the penthouse. Could she really trust Elliot Voss? And more troublingly, could she trust herself not to develop real feelings for him? When they reached the penthouse, Elliot walked her to her bedroom door, an unexpected gesture that felt almost like a real date ending. Thank you for tonight, he said formally. You were perfect. Even with the Jamal interruption? Even with that? Elliot's expression softened. We'll figure this out, Veronica, I promise. On impulse, she rose on her tiptoes and kissed his cheek. Good night, Elliot. He looked startled by the gesture, his hand rising to touch the spot where her lips had been. Good night. Inside her room, Veronica leaned against the door, her heart beating faster than it should. This was getting complicated. Not just the situation with Jamal, but her own confused feelings. Don't fall in love with me, Elliot had warned when they made their deal. At the time, it had seemed like the easiest condition to meet. Now she wasn't so sure. The next morning, Veronica woke to the smell of something burning. She rushed to the kitchen to find Elliot standing over the stove, a pan of blackened pancakes smoking in front of him. What are you doing? She asked, trying not to laugh. Elliot looked sheepish. I thought I'd make breakfast. It didn't go as planned. I can see that. Veronica opened a window to let the smoke out. Why pancakes? They seemed simple enough last night, Elliot said, scraping the burnt mess into the trash. Clearly I was mistaken. Veronica was touched by the gesture. Let me help. Together they made a fresh batch. Elliot was a surprisingly attentive student, watching carefully as she demonstrated the proper technique. The secret is patience, she explained. Wait for the bubbles before you flip. As they sat down to eat, Veronica asked, What time is Jamal coming? Around noon, Elliot replied. I've asked my personal lawyer to join us. She'll help explain the contract and the legal protections in place. Veronica nodded, grateful for his thoroughness. Do you think telling Jamal about our arrangement is safe? We'll have him sign an NDA, Elliot said. But yes, I think it's necessary. He needs to understand what's at stake. And what is at stake exactly? Veronica asked. Besides your company and my settlement? Elliot considered her question. Reputations. Mine as a businessman who can be trusted to honor his word. Yours is, he trailed off. As what? Veronica prompted. As someone who isn't just after my money, Elliot finished. If our arrangement became public, people would assume the worst about both of us. You mean they'd assume I'm a gold digger who trapped you into marriage? Veronica said bluntly. Some. Would, yes, Elliot admitted. People like simple narratives. Rich man, poor woman, it writes itself. But it's not true, Veronica said firmly. I didn't trap you. You offered me a deal and I accepted it. I know that, Elliot said, his eyes meeting hers. But the truth rarely matters in the court of public opinion. The conversation was interrupted by Elliot's phone ringing. He checked the screen and frowned. I need to take this. It's about last night. As he answered the call and moved to his office, Veronica cleaned up the breakfast dishes, thinking about what he'd said. Public opinion didn't really matter to her. She knew who she was and why she'd agreed to this arrangement, but it clearly mattered to Elliot. His world was one where reputation and appearances were currency. When Jamal arrived at noon, he was accompanied by a woman Veronica had never seen before. Tall, elegant, with short grey hair and sharp eyes. This is Patricia Winters, Elliot introduced her. My personal attorney and one of the few people who knows the full truth about our arrangement. Patricia shook Veronica's hand firmly. A pleasure to meet you properly, Mrs. Voss. I prepared your prenuptial agreement, though we didn't meet directly. Nice to meet you, Veronica replied, then hugged her brother. How are you holding up? Better now that those guards are gone, Jamal said. They were arrested last night, just like Mr. Voss said. Elliot, please, Elliot corrected, guiding them to the living room where documents were laid out on the coffee table. Before we begin, Jamal, I need you to sign this non-disclosure agreement. Jamal looked at the papers suspiciously. What happens if I don't? Then we can't tell you anything, Patricia said matter-of-factly, and you'll continue to be in the dark about a situation that directly affects you. Jamal glanced at Veronica, who nodded encouragingly. With a sigh, he signed these document. Now, Elliot began, about my marriage to your sister. Over the next hour, they explained everything. The marriage clause, the contract, the financial arrangements, the one-year timeline. Jamal listened silently, his expression growing increasingly troubled. So it's all fake, he said finally, looking at Veronica. You're not really his wife. Legally I am, Veronica corrected, but emotionally, it's a business arrangement. With benefits for both parties, Patricia added smoothly. Your sister receives substantial compensation, and Mr. Voss retains control of his company. Additionally, there are provisions for your protection and career advancement, Jamal. I don't need his charity, Jamal said stiffly. It's not charity, Elliot countered. It's part of the deal I made with your sister. Your well-being is important to her, so it became important to me. Veronica appreciated the way Elliot phrased it, acknowledging her priorities without making Jamal feel like a handout recipient. What about last night? Jamal asked. Those guards? Elliot's expression hardened. Someone is trying to undermine our arrangement. I'm still investigating who and why, but I promise you, Jamal, I had nothing to do with those threats. Why should I believe you? Because I gave my word to your sister, Elliot said simply, and because whoever is behind this is as much my enemy as yours. Jamal turned to Veronica. And you trust him? Veronica looked at Elliot, finding his eyes already on her. Did she trust him? This man she'd married for money, who'd offered her a way to help her brother, who made burnt pancakes in the morning just to surprise her. Yes, she said finally, I trust him. Something shifted in Elliot's expression, relief, perhaps, or gratitude. Whatever it was, it made Veronica's heart beat a little faster. Fine, Jamal said, still sounding skeptical, but I want to be kept in the loop. No more surprises. Agreed, Elliot said, extending his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Jamal shook. As Patricia reviewed additional legal documents with Jamal, Elliot pulled Veronica aside. Thank you, he said quietly. For trusting me. Don't make me regret it, Veronica replied, only half joking. Elliot's expression grew serious. I won't. Later, after Jamal and Patricia had left, Veronica and Elliot sat on the balcony overlooking the city. The afternoon sun cast a golden glow over everything, making the moment feel strangely intimate. Do you think we'll find out who's behind the threats? Veronica asked. Yes, Elliot said confidently. I have my best people looking into it. Whoever it is, they've made a serious miscalculation. How so? Elliot turned to her, his eyes intense. They thought threatening your brother would push you away, make you doubt me. It almost worked, Veronica admitted. But it didn't, Elliot pointed out. Instead, we're communicating, working together. They've actually made our arrangement stronger. Veronica hadn't thought of it that way, but he was right. Before the threat to Jamal, she and Elliot had been living parallel lives in the same space. Now they were genuinely collaborating. We should celebrate that, Elliot said suddenly. Are you free tomorrow night? I think so. Why? I'd like to take my wife on a proper date, Elliot said, a smile playing at the corner of his mouth. For appearance's sake, of course. Of course, Veronica echoed, ignoring the flutter in her stomach. For appearances. But as she looked out, at the setting sun, Veronica wondered if appearances were all that mattered anymore. Something was changing between them, something that hadn't been part of their original contract. And despite her promise not to fall in love with Elliot Voss, Veronica was beginning to worry that her heart hadn't read the fine print. Veronica stood in front of her closet, trying to decide what to wear for her date with Elliot. She'd never imagined she would be nervous about going out with her own husband, but here she was changing outfits for the third time. It's not a real date, she reminded herself. It's for appearances. But if that was true, why was her heart beating so fast? Why did it matter what she wore? She finally settled on a simple red dress that made her feel confident. As she applied a touch of lipstick, she caught herself smiling at her reflection. This was dangerous territory. Elliot had been clear from the beginning. Don't fall in love with me. It was the one condition he'd set. When she emerged from her room, Elliot was waiting in the living room. He wore dark jeans and a grey cashmere sweater, more casual than his usual suits, but still elegant. For a moment he just looked at her, and something in his expression made her cheeks warm. You look beautiful, he said simply. Thank you, Veronica replied. You don't look so bad yourself, no suit tonight. I thought we'd go somewhere less formal, Elliot explained. Somewhere we can actually talk without worrying who might be listening. The restaurant he took her to wasn't what she expected. Instead of an exclusive upscale establishment, it was a small Italian place tucked away on a side street. The owner, an older man named Marco, greeted Elliot with obvious familiarity. Elliot? It's been too long, Marco said, embracing him warmly. Then he turned to Veronica with a wide smile. And this must be the wife I've been reading about. Bellissima. Marco, this is Veronica, Elliot said. Veronica, Marco makes the best pasta in the city. In the country, Marco corrected with a wink. Come, I have your table ready. He led them to a secluded corner booth, partially hidden by a wine rack. It was cozy and intimate, with a single candle flickering between them. No one will bother you here, Marco promised, as he poured them each a glass of red wine. Enjoy. Once they were alone, Veronica asked, How do you know this place? It doesn't seem like your usual style. My father used to bring me here, Elliot explained, his expression softening with the memory. It was our special place. When I was a kid, Marco would let me help make pasta in the kitchen. Veronica tried to imagine a young Elliot with flour on his hands, learning to roll pasta dough. It was a charming image, so different from the stern CEO she'd first met. You never talk much about your father, she observed. Elliot took a sip of his wine. He was a complicated man, brilliant in business, less so with emotions. After my mother died, he threw himself into work. Building the company became his way of coping, I think. And you? I had nannies, tutors, everything money could buy. Elliot's voice held no self-pity, just statement of fact. But this place, this was where he and I connected. Every Sunday night, no matter how busy things were, we came here for dinner. That sounds nice, Veronica said softly. It was, Elliot agreed. Until I went to college. Then the Sunday dinners became monthly, then quarterly. By the time I graduated business school, they were rare. The company always came first. Veronica could hear the echo of old pain in his words. Is that why the marriage clause is so important to you? Because it was important to him. Elliot looked surprised by her insight. Partly. The clause was his way of ensuring the company stayed grounded in family values. He believed a married CEO would make more stable, long-term decisions. Do you believe that? I don't know, Elliot admitted. But I do know I promised him I'd honor his wishes. It was the last conversation we had before his heart attack. Marco returned with plates of steaming pasta, momentarily pausing their conversation. After he left, Veronica took a bite and closed, her eyes in appreciation. This is amazing, she said. Told you, Elliot replied with a small smile. Now your turn. Tell me about your family. Veronica twirled pasta around her fork. Not much to tell. My mum worked 2 jobs most of my life. She did her best, but there was never enough money or time. She died 5 years ago, cancer like your mom. I'm sorry, Elliot said, genuine sympathy in his voice. Thanks. After she got sick, I dropped out of college to take care of her and Jamal. He was only 14 then, still needed someone looking after him. That was a big sacrifice, Elliot observed. Veronica shrugged. It's what family does. Anyway, after she died, it was just Jamal and me. I worked whatever jobs I could find to keep us afloat. That's when I started at the bakery. Layla's my cousin, and she needed help with late-night deliveries. You never went back to college? Never had the time or money, Veronica said matter-of-factly. But I did take some art classes at the community center. That's how I ended up teaching there. What were you studying before you dropped out? Elliot asked. Graphic design, Veronica said with a hint of wistfulness. I wanted to work in advertising, maybe start my own firm someday. Elliot looked thoughtful. That's still possible, you know. With the settlement from our arrangement, you could go back to school. I've thought about it, Veronica admitted, but Jamal's education comes first. He's the one with the real tech skills. If he gets that mentorship at your company, it could change his life. What about your life? Elliot asked. What would change it? The question caught Veronica off guard. No one had asked her that in years. She'd been so focused on survival, on taking care of others, that her own dreams had become distant, nearly forgotten things. Financial security, I guess, she said finally. Not having to work 3 jobs just to make rent. Being able to help Jamal without worrying about my own future. That's practical, Elliot noted. But what about dreams, passions? Veronica smiled ruefully. Those are luxuries I haven't been able to afford. And now, Elliot pressed gently. Now. Veronica considered the question. Now I have a chance to breathe, figure out what I really want. And what do you think that might be? Before she could answer, Elliot's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. I'm sorry. I need to take this. It's about the security situation. As he stepped away to answer the call, Veronica watched. Him, struck by how their conversation had shifted from polite small talk to something deeper. He'd asked about her dreams, not as part of their contract, but because he seemed genuinely interested. When Elliot returned, his expression was serious. That was my head of security. They've identified who authorized those guards to keep their access after being fired. Who was it? Veronica asked. James Whitman. He's on the board, very close to my aunt. Elliot's jaw tightened. He claims it was an administrative oversight, but the timing is too convenient. What are you going to do? I've called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning, Elliot said. This goes beyond harassment. It's corporate sabotage. The romantic mood of their dinner had evaporated, replaced by tension. But strangely, Veronica didn't mind. This felt real. Elliot including her in his concerns, treating her as a partner rather than just a contractual spouse. Is there anything I can do to help? She asked. Elliot looked at her with surprise, then gratitude. Actually, yes, I'd like you to come to the meeting. Me? Why? Because you're my wife, Elliot said simply. And because whoever is behind this needs to see that intimidation tactics won't work. We stand together. We stand together, Veronica repeated, liking the sound of it. Okay, I'll be there. The rest of dinner passed with lighter conversation, but the connection between them had deepened. By the time they left the restaurant, something had changed. When Elliot took her hand as they walked to the car, it felt natural, not like part of an act. Back at the penthouse, Elliot walked her to her door again, just as he had after the gala. This time, the moment felt charged with unspoken possibilities. "Thank you for tonight," Veronica said softly. "I enjoyed getting to know the real Elliot Voss." "The real Elliot Voss?" he echoed with a slight smile. "The one who learned to make pasta with Marco. The one who keeps his promises to his father." Veronica met his eyes. "That Elliot is much more interesting than the cold CEO everyone else sees." Something vulnerable flashed across Elliot's face. "Not many people get to see that side of me." "I'm glad I did," Veronica said honestly. For a moment, they stood there, the air between them electric with tension. Elliot's eyes dropped to her lips, and Veronica felt herself leaning slightly forward, drawn to him by something stronger than conscious thought. But then Elliot stepped back, breaking the moment. "Good night, Veronica," he said, his voice slightly rough. "Good night," she replied, trying to ignore the disappointment that washed through her. Inside her room, Veronica leaned against the door, her heart racing. What was happening to her? This wasn't supposed to be real. She wasn't supposed to feel this attraction, this growing affection for a man who had clearly stated he didn't want her love. "Get it together," she muttered to herself. "It's a contract, not a romance." But as she got ready for bed, she couldn't stop thinking about the way Elliot had looked at her across the candle-lit table, or how natural it had felt to hold his hand. For the first time, she wondered if their arrangement might be becoming something more complicated for both of them. The next morning, Veronica dressed carefully for the board meeting in a tailored navy dress from her new wardrobe. It was professional but confident, sending the message that she belonged in the boardroom despite her background. When she joined Elliot for breakfast, he looked up from his tablet and smiled approvingly. "Perfect choice. I thought I should look the part of Mrs. Voss," Veronica said, pouring herself coffee. "You are Mrs. Voss," Elliot reminded her. "Remember that today. No matter what happens in that meeting, you have every right to be there. Even though our marriage is a contract, especially because it's a contract," Elliot said firmly. "Contracts matter in business. Our arrangement is legally binding. No one can dispute that." In the car on the way to Voss Enterprises, Elliot briefed her on what to expect. "Martha will be there along with Whitman and the rest of the board. They'll be surprised to see you, probably even try to have you removed." "Can they do that?" "Not if I don't allow it," Elliot assured her. "As CEO, I chair the board. This is my meeting." When they arrived, Elliot's assistant, David, was waiting for them in the lobby. He looked surprised to see Veronica. "Mrs. Voss will be joining us today," Elliot informed him, his tone leaving no room for discussion. "Of course, sir," David replied, smoothly. The board is already assembled in the main conference room. As they rode the elevator to the top floor, Veronica felt her nerves building. These people were from a different world, a world of power, money, and corporate intrigue. What did she know about board meetings and business politics? Sensing her anxiety, Elliot took her hand and squeezed it gently. "You'll be fine. Just follow." "My lead." The conference room fell silent when they entered, all eyes turning to Veronica. Martha Voss sat at the far end of the table, her expression a mix of surprise and calculation. Beside her sat an older man with silver hair and cold eyes. James Whitman, Veronica presumed. "Elliot, what is the meaning of this?" Martha asked sharply. "This is a closed board meeting. My wife has every right to be here," Elliot replied calmly, guiding Veronica to a seat beside his at the head of the table, "especially since the topic directly concerns her family's safety." Whitman cleared his throat. "I don't see how a personnel matter regarding security guards warrants such unusual attendance." "It's not just a personnel matter," Elliot countered, his voice hardening. "It's about unauthorized use of company resources to harass and intimidate a young man whose only crime was being related to my wife." The board members exchanged glances. Some looked confused, others uncomfortable. "That's a serious accusation," one woman said. "Do you have evidence?" "I do," Elliot confirmed. He nodded to David, who distributed folders to each board member. "Inside, you'll find documentation showing that 2 security guards, Reynolds and..." Diaz were terminated 3 weeks ago for excessive force and harassment. You'll also find records showing their access cards remained active after termination, authorized by James Whitman's security code. All eyes turned to Whitman, whose face had gone pale. "This is absurd," he sputtered. "It was a clerical error, nothing more. A clerical error that resulted in these same guards wearing Voss uniforms threatening my brother-in-law." Elliot's voice was dangerous now. "A clerical error that somehow targeted the exact person they had harassed before?" Martha intervened smoothly. "Elliot, surely you're overreacting. If there was an oversight, it's regrettable but hardly cause for an emergency meeting." "It's not just an oversight," Elliot said. "It's part of a pattern I've been investigating since Veronica and I married." This was news to Veronica, who tried to keep her surprise from showing on her face. "What pattern?" asked another board member. "Attempts to undermine my leadership," Elliot explained. "Leaked information about deals in progress. Rumors spread to clients. And now intimidation of my wife's family. You can't possibly think the board is involved in such things," Martha said, her voice sharp with indignation. "Not the entire board," Elliot clarified. "But someone in this room has been working against the company's interests. Against my interests." "And you think it's me?" Whitman demanded, finding his voice again. "Your security code doesn't lie," Elliot replied coldly. "The question is whether you acted alone or under direction." Whitman's eyes flickered briefly to Martha, so quickly Veronica almost missed it. But Elliot didn't. "I see," he said quietly. "Well, that answers that question." Martha's face betrayed nothing, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped her pen. "Elliot, these accusations are not only unfounded, but potentially libelous. I suggest you consider your next words very carefully." "My next words are these," Elliot said, standing. "James Whitman is hereby removed from the board, effective immediately, pending investigation for corporate espionage and misuse of company resources." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Whitman jumped to his feet. "You can't do that," he shouted. "Only a full board vote can remove a member." "Check the bylaws," Elliot suggested calmly. Article 7, Section 3. The CEO may suspend any board member found to be acting against company interests, pending a formal investigation. You authorized company resources to harass a civilian. That qualifies. Whitman looked desperately to Martha, who remained silent, her expression unreadable. "Security will escort you out," Elliot continued. "Your company devices and access have already been revoked." As if on cue, 2 security officers entered the room. Whitman looked around wildly, seeking support but found none. Even Martha had abandoned him, her gaze fixed on some distant point. "This isn't over," Whitman threatened as the guards approached. "Actually, it is," Elliot replied, "for you." After Whitman was escorted out, Elliot addressed the remaining board members. "I want to be clear. I am committed to this company and its future. I am also committed to my marriage." He glanced at Veronica. "Anyone who tries to interfere with either will face similar consequences." The meeting concluded shortly after, with the board voting to initiate a formal investigation into Whitman's activities. As the members filed out, Martha lingered, approaching Veronica with a cold smile. "Well played," she said quietly. "I underestimated you." "I didn't do anything," Veronica replied honestly. "Exactly," Martha said, her eyes calculating. "You let Elliot fight your battles, very clever." "It wasn't her battle," Elliot interjected, joining them. "It was mine. When someone threatens my family, they threaten me." Martha's eyebrows rose slightly at the word family. "How touching. I never thought I'd see the day when Elliot Voss became so sentimental." "It's not sentiment," Elliot corrected. "It's principle. Something you might want to remember, Aunt Martha." "Oh, I will," she promised, her smile not reaching her eyes. "I certainly will." After she left, Veronica released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "That was intense." "Welcome to corporate politics," Elliot said dryly. "You did well." "I didn't do anything," Veronica pointed out. "You were here," Elliot said. "You showed them all that we're united. That matters." On the drive back to the penthouse, Veronica considered what had happened. "Do you think your aunt was behind it all?" "Almost certainly," Elliot said grimly. "But Whitman was careless." Martha never is. There won't be a paper trail leading to her. So she gets away with it. For now, Elliot conceded. But she's lost a key ally on the board, and I've sent a clear message about the consequences of coming after us. Us. The word hung between them, laden with meaning. They were no longer just two people bound by a contract. They were a team. Thank you, Veronica said suddenly, for protecting Jamal, for standing up for me today. Elliot looked at her, his expression softening. You don't need to thank me for that. Still, Veronica insisted, it means a lot. When they reached the penthouse, Elliot surprised her by suggesting lunch on the balcony. I've had the chef prepare. Something special. A small celebration of our first victory together. The meal was delicious, a light pasta salad, fresh bread and chilled wine. As they ate, Veronica found herself studying Elliot's face in the sunlight. He seemed different. Today, more relaxed, more open. What? He asked, catching her stare. Nothing, Veronica said quickly. Just, I'm starting to see why you're so good at what you do. You were impressive in that meeting. So were you, Elliot replied. Not everyone could walk into a room full of hostile executives and hold their own. You have natural poise, Veronica. The compliment warmed her. Maybe I missed my calling in corporate America. Maybe you did, Elliot said, surprisingly serious. Which reminds me, I have something for you. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table to her. What's this? Veronica asked, opening it curiously. Inside was an acceptance letter from the city's most prestigious art and design school, along with a full scholarship offer. How? Veronica looked up at Elliot in shock. I may have made a few calls, Elliot admitted. I showed them your portfolio, those drawings you leave around the penthouse. They were very impressed. You did this for me, Veronica whispered, overwhelmed. You said graphic design was your dream before life got in the way, Elliot said simply. Now you can pursue it again. The scholarship covers everything, tuition, supplies, even a stipend for transportation. But our contract, the settlement. This has nothing to do with our contract, Elliot assured her. The scholarship is yours regardless of our arrangement. No strings attached. Tears welled in Veronica's eyes. I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept, Elliot urged. Classes start next semester. You'd have to reduce your hours at the library and community center, but... Yes, Veronica interrupted, wiping away a tear. Yes, I'll accept. The smile that broke across Elliot's face was breathtaking in its genuineness. Good. That's... good. Without thinking, Veronica rounded the table and hugged him tightly. Thank you. No one has ever done anything like this. For me. After a moment's hesitation, Elliot's arms came around her, holding her close. You deserve it, he murmured into her hair. You deserve every opportunity. The embrace lasted longer than it should have, neither of them willing to be the first to let go. When they finally separated, Veronica was acutely aware of the shift between them. The way Elliot's eyes lingered on her face, the flush she could feel in her cheeks. I should call Jamal, she said, needing a moment to collect herself. Tell him about the meeting. Of course, Elliot agreed, his voice slightly rough. I have some work to catch up on anyway. As Veronica retreated to her room to make the call, she couldn't ignore the fluttering in her stomach or the warmth in her chest. The scholarship, the way Elliot had defended her at the meeting, the lingering hug on the balcony, none of it felt like part of their business arrangement. It felt like something else entirely. Something dangerous and wonderful and completely against the rules they'd established. Don't fall in love with me, Elliot had warned. But sitting on her bed, clutching the scholarship letter to her chest, Veronica feared it might be too late for that warning. Over the next few weeks, life fell into a new pattern. Elliot and Veronica began spending more time together, having breakfast before he left for work, occasionally meeting for lunch, and often sharing dinner in the evening. They talked about their days, their thoughts, their pasts. Sometimes they simply sat in comfortable silence, reading or watching a movie. To Veronica's surprise, Elliot turned out to have a dry sense of humor that emerged when he was relaxed. She found herself looking forward to making him smile, to coaxing out that rare laugh. For his part, Elliot seemed genuinely interested in her art. He asked about her techniques, her inspirations. One weekend, he even accompanied her to an exhibition at a local gallery, listening attentively as she explained why certain pieces spoke to her. They still maintained separate bedrooms, separate lives in many ways, but the boundaries were blurring. Veronica would find little gifts from Elliot, art supplies, books he thought she'd enjoy, once even a potted orchid for her nightstand. She, in turn, left him drawings, quick sketches of moments from their day, scenes from the city, once even a portrait of him working at his desk, his expression intent and focused. Neither of them spoke about these gestures. They existed in a space beyond their contract, acknowledged but unnamed. One evening, as they sat in the living room, Veronica sketching, Elliot reviewing documents, his phone rang. The call was brief, but when he hung up, his expression was troubled. "What is it?" Veronica asked, setting aside her sketchbook. "The investigation into Whitman has hit a wall," Elliot explained. "He's refusing to cooperate, and we can't find a direct link to Martha." "She's covering her tracks," Veronica said. "Always does," Elliot agreed grimly. "But there's more. Whitman's threatening to go public with allegations about our marriage." Veronica felt cold. "What kind of allegations?" "That it's a sham. A business arrangement to satisfy the company bylaws." Elliot ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. "He doesn't have proof, but the rumors alone could be damaging. What do we do?" Elliot looked at her, his expression serious. "We need to be more convincing, more public. Show everyone that our marriage is real." "How do we do that?" Veronica asked, though she had a feeling she knew the answer. "There's a charity benefit next weekend, a major event, lots of press. We need to attend together and be affectionate, convincingly so." "You mean like a real couple?" Veronica clarified. "Yes," Elliot confirmed. "It might mean physical displays of affection, if you're comfortable with that." Veronica's heart beat faster at the thought. "I think I can manage that." Elliot studied her face. "Are you sure? This goes beyond our original agreement." "So does a lot of what's happened," Veronica pointed out. "We're adapting, right?" "Right," Elliot agreed, though something in his eyes suggested there was more he wanted to say. The night of the benefit arrived quickly. Veronica chose a stunning emerald gown that hugged her curves, before flowing to the floor in a silken waterfall. Her hair was styled in an elegant updo, showcasing the diamond earrings Elliot had given her for the occasion. When she emerged from her room, Elliot was waiting in his tuxedo. The look on his face as he saw her made her breath catch. "You are," he began, then seemed to lose his words. "Presentable," Veronica suggested with a nervous smile. "Breathtaking," Elliot finished, his voice low. The benefit was held at the city's Natural History Museum, its grand halls transformed with lights and flowers. As they walked the red carpet, Elliot kept his arm firmly around Veronica's waist, occasionally leaning in to whisper something that made her laugh. Inside, they mingled with the city's elite, Elliot introducing her proudly to business associates and society figures. This time, Veronica noticed a difference in how people received her. There was still curiosity, but less condescension. Word of her scholarship to the prestigious design school had spread, giving her a legitimacy she hadn't had before. "Elliot, darling," called a familiar voice. Martha Voss approached, resplendent in a silver gown. "And Veronica, how lovely to see you both." "Aunt Martha," Elliot acknowledged coolly. "I'm surprised to see you here." "Why?" "I never miss the annual benefit." Martha's smile was sharp. "I was just chatting with the Hendersons. They mentioned the most interesting rumor about your marriage." Elliot's arm tightened around Veronica's waist. "People will talk." "Indeed they will," Martha agreed, "especially when a marriage seems convenient, timed perfectly to satisfy certain conditions." "Our timing was fortunate," Veronica interjected smoothly, "but our feelings are very real." Martha's eyes narrowed slightly. "How touching. And yet one wonders." "No one who sees us together wonders anything," Elliot said firmly. Then, to Veronica's surprise, he turned to her, cupped her face gently, and kissed her. It wasn't the brief, perfunctory kiss they'd shared at their wedding. This was slow, tender, and devastatingly thorough. Veronica found herself responding instinctively, her hands coming up to rest on his chest as the world around them seemed to fade away. When they finally broke apart, Veronica was breathless, her heart racing. Elliot's eyes were dark as they met, hers filled with something that looked very much like real desire. "Well," Martha said, her voice tight with displeasure. "How convincing." She walked away without another word, leaving Veronica and Elliot still caught in each other's gaze. "That was," Veronica began, not sure how to finish the sentence. "Necessary," Elliot supplied, though his voice lacked conviction. "For appearances." "Right," Veronica agreed, trying to ignore the lingering sensation of his lips on hers. "For appearances." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. They danced, they chatted, they played the perfect couple. But something had changed with that kiss. There was a new tension between them, an awareness that hadn't been there before. In the car ride home, they sat closer than usual, their hands occasionally brushing. Neither spoke, but the silence was charged with unspoken thoughts. When they reached the penthouse, Elliot walked her to her bedroom door as had become their custom. This time, however, he lingered. "You were amazing tonight," he said softly. "Thank you." "Just doing my part," Veronica replied, though they both knew it had been more than that. Elliot reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The simple touch sent shivers down her spine. "Veronica," he began, his voice rough with emotion. "Yes," she whispered, her heart pounding. For a long moment he just looked at her, conflict clear in his eyes. Then, with visible effort, he stepped back. "Good night," he said finally. Veronica felt a pang of disappointment so acute it was almost physical. "Good night, Elliot." Inside her room, she leaned against the door, trying to steady her breathing. The evening replayed in her mind. The kiss, the dancing, the way Elliot had looked at her when he thought no one was watching. None of it felt like an act anymore. And that terrified her, because despite all her precautions, despite the clear terms of their agreement, Veronica Tate was falling in love with her husband. And she had no idea what to do about it. The morning after the benefit, Veronica woke to find a text message from Jamal. "Need to talk ASAP, can I come over?" Concerned by the urgency, she replied immediately, "Of course, everything okay. Tell you when I see you," came his cryptic response. An hour later, Jamal arrived at the penthouse, his expression serious. Elliot had already left for an early meeting, so they had the place to themselves. "What's going on?" Veronica asked as they sat in the kitchen with coffee. Jamal pulled out his phone and showed her a news article from a gossip website. The headline made her stomach drop. "Voss marriage, true love or corporate strategy?" The article speculated about the timing of their wedding, noting how conveniently it had occurred just months before Elliot's deadline. It quoted sources close to the couple, claiming the marriage was nothing more than a business arrangement to satisfy company bylaws. "Where did this come from?" Veronica asked, though she had a pretty good guess. "Probably Whitman," Jamal said, confirming her suspicion. "But that's not all. Look at this." He scrolled down to show a photo of Veronica from years ago, her mugshot, from when she'd been arrested for shoplifting at 17. The caption read, "Voss's bride has criminal past." "How did they get this?" Veronica whispered, horrified. "Juvenile records are sealed." "Someone with connections," Jamal said grimly. "Someone trying to hurt you." Veronica felt sick. The article painted her as a calculated grifter who had somehow manipulated her way into Elliot's life for money. It mentioned her suspicious background, her multiple jobs, even her dropout status from college. "This is a nightmare," she said, pushing the phone away. "What am I going to do?" "Have you told Elliot?" "He's in meetings all morning. I don't want to disturb him with this." "Veronica," Jamal said seriously, "this isn't just about you anymore. This affects him too. His company, his reputation." She knew Jamal was right, but the thought of Elliot seeing that article, seeing her portrayed as a criminal, a gold digger, made her chest tight with anxiety. "I'll tell him when he gets home," she promised. "Let me process this first." After Jamal left, Veronica paced the penthouse, trying to decide what to do. The article wasn't entirely wrong. Their marriage was a contract. But it felt like so much more now. The thought of people believing she had manipulated Elliot, that she was using him, was unbearable. Just as she was about to call Elliot, the elevator door opened and Martha Voss walked in. "Mrs. Voss," Veronica said stiffly, surprised by the unannounced visit. "Elliot isn't home." "I know," Martha replied, setting her purse on the counter. "I came to see you." "How did you get up here?" Veronica asked. "The penthouse elevator required a special key." "I still have access," Martha said dismissively. "Family privilege. What do you want?" Martha smiled coldly. "I wanted to see how you're holding up after that nasty article. Such terrible timing, just when you and Elliot were putting on such a convincing show." "You're behind this," Veronica accused, anger replacing her shock. "Such a serious accusation," Martha said, examining her manicured nails. "But then you would know about serious accusations, wouldn't you? Theft at 17. What would the board say?" "That record was sealed," Veronica said through gritted teeth. "You had no right." "Rights are for people who play by the rules," Martha replied. "You broke them when you entered into this sham marriage with my nephew." So Martha knew. Somehow she'd discovered the truth about their arrangement. "I don't know what you're talking about," Veronica tried, but Martha waved her hand dismissively. "Please, let's not insult each other's intelligence. I know about the contract, the 1-year timeline, the settlement amount." Martha's smile was triumphant. $2 million is a lot of money for a delivery girl. Veronica felt cold. "How did you find out?" "Elliot isn't the only one with resources," Martha said vaguely. "The point is, I know, and now, thanks to that article, others are beginning to suspect." "What do you want?" Veronica asked, though she already knew the answer. "I want you to leave," Martha said simply. "Break the contract, walk away." "And if I don't?" "Then the next article won't just hint at your criminal past. It will expose everything, the contract, the arrangement, all of it. Elliot will lose the company, and you'll be known as the gold digger who tried to scam one of the city's most powerful men." Martha's voice hardened. "Your brother's mentorship? Gone. Your scholarship? Revoked. Your reputation? Destroyed." Veronica felt her hands, trembling with anger and fear. "You would hurt your own nephew just to get control of the company?" "I would protect the company from his poor decisions," Martha corrected. "Elliot is brilliant but sentimental, like his father. The Voss empire needs a pragmatist at the helm." "Someone like you," Veronica said bitterly. "Exactly." Martha picked up her purse. "You have until tomorrow to make your decision. Leave now quietly and I'll make sure you receive a generous severance. Not what the contract promised, but enough to help your brother. Stay, and I destroy you both." With that final threat, Martha left, the elevator doors closing behind her with a soft chime that seemed to mock Veronica's turmoil. Alone in the penthouse, Veronica sank onto the couch, her mind racing. She could call Elliot, tell him everything. But would he believe her over his aunt? And even if he did, would fighting back just lead to the exposure Martha threatened? The thought of Elliot losing his company because of her was unbearable. He'd worked so hard to honor his father's legacy, to build something meaningful. And Jamal, his future at Voss Enterprises, would be collateral damage. As the day wore on, Veronica made her decision. It broke her heart, but she knew what she had to do. She began packing a small bag, just essentials, nothing Elliot had given her. The designer clothes, the jewelry, the scholarship letter, she left it all behind. She wrote a note, her hand shaking as she tried to find the right words. "Elliot, I can't do this anymore. The contract, the pretending, it's too much. I'm not cut out for your world. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. Please don't try to find me. It's better this way. Veronica." It was cruel, she knew, abrupt and cold. But a gentle goodbye would only make him look for her, try to change her mind. This way, he might be angry enough to let her go. She left the note on the kitchen counter and took one last look around the penthouse that had briefly been her home. Then, before she could change her mind, she left, taking the service elevator, down to avoid being seen. Outside, rain was falling, just like the night she'd first walked into Elliot's life. The symmetry wasn't lost on her as she pulled her hood up and disappeared into the city, tears mingling with the raindrops on her face. She was doing the right thing, she told herself. Protecting Elliot, protecting Jamal, protecting the futures they all deserved. Even if it meant sacrificing her own happiness, even if it meant walking away from the man she had promised not to fall in love with, the promise she had failed to keep. Elliot Voss stood in the empty penthouse, staring at the note in his hand. The paper was crumpled now from how tightly he'd been gripping it since finding it 3 hours ago. "I can't do this anymore. I'm not cut out for your world. Please don't try to find me." The words made no sense. Just yesterday they had been so close, so connected. That kiss at the benefit hadn't been for show, at least not for him. He had felt something real, and he was certain Veronica had too. So why would she leave like this? Without explanation? Without a proper goodbye? Elliot pulled out his phone and called her number for the 20th time. Again, it went straight to voicemail. He tried Jamal next, but there was no answer there either. Something was wrong. This wasn't like Veronica. She wasn't a coward who ran away from challenges. Whatever had happened, he needed to find her. Elliot called his head of security. "I need you to locate my wife," he said without preamble. "Check the bakery, the library, the community center. Check her old apartment, find her." As he hung up, his gaze fell on the morning newspaper on the counter, the one he hadn't had time to read before rushing to the office. The headline on the Society page made his blood run cold. Voss marriage, true love, or corporate strategy? Scanning the article quickly, Elliot felt rage building inside him. The innuendos, the thinly veiled accusations, the exposure of Veronica's juvenile record. This was character assassination, and he had a pretty good idea who was behind it. His phone rang. It was David, his assistant. "Sir, your aunt is here. She says it's urgent." "Send her in," Elliot said grimly. Minutes later, Martha swept into his office, her expression one of practiced concern. "Elliot, darling, have you seen the awful article about Veronica? I came as soon as I heard." "Cut the act, Martha," Elliot said coldly. "What did you do?" Martha's concerned mask slipped slightly. "I don't know what you mean." "Veronica is gone. She left a note saying she couldn't do this anymore." And mysteriously, on the same day, this hit piece appears. Elliot slammed the newspaper down on his desk. "What did you say to her?" Martha hesitated, then seemed to decide honesty was her best approach. "I simply made her aware of reality, that her presence in your life was becoming a liability." "You threatened her," Elliot realized, his voice dangerously quiet. "I gave her an opportunity to exit gracefully," Martha corrected, "before the whole arrangement was exposed." "What arrangement?" Elliot asked, testing to see how much his aunt actually knew. Martha smiled thinly. "The contract marriage, of course. 1 year, $2 million, all to satisfy the company bylaws. Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" Elliot felt cold. Somehow Martha had learned the truth. "How did you discover this?" "Your attorney, Patricia Winters, has a very loyal assistant," Martha said with a shrug. "Loyal to me, that is. He's been keeping an eye on your legal activities for years." "You spied on me," Elliot said flatly. "I protected the company," Martha countered. "What were you thinking, Elliot? Entering into a sham marriage with a woman from the streets? A woman with a criminal record?" "Don't talk about her that way," Elliot warned, his voice low. "You have no idea who she is." "Oh, I think I do," Martha said dismissively. "A clever opportunist who saw a way to cash in. But really, Elliot, you could have found someone more suitable for this arrangement. Someone from our world who understands discretion." "Someone you could control, you mean?" Elliot said. "That was always the problem with Veronica, wasn't it? You couldn't control her. She wasn't impressed by your money or your social standing." "She was beneath you," Martha insisted. "No," Elliot said firmly. "She was real, honest. Everything our world isn't." Martha studied him for a moment, her eyes widening slightly. "Good heavens, you've actually fallen in love with her." Elliot didn't deny it. The realization had been growing in him for weeks, but hearing it stated so boldly made it impossible to ignore. Yes, he had fallen in love with Veronica Tate, not because of their contract, but despite it. "What did you tell her?" he demanded. "What threats did you make that would drive her away?" Martha sighed. "I simply explained the consequences of staying. Exposure of your arrangement, Loss of the company, public humiliation, the end of her brother's opportunities. You used Jamal as leverage, Elliot said, the pieces falling into place. You knew she would do anything to protect him. Everyone has a pressure point, Martha said without remorse. Hers was obvious. Elliot walked to the window, trying to control his anger. What you've done isn't just despicable, it's illegal. Corporate espionage, blackmail, invasion of privacy. Prove it, Martha challenged. It's my word against hers. And she's gone, Elliot. She made her choice. No, Elliot turned to face his aunt. You forced her hand, but this isn't over. It is, Martha insisted. She's gone, and you have less than 6 months to find a real wife or lose the company. I've already spoken to several board members about the article. They're concerned about the stability of your leadership. I'm sure you made certain of that, Elliot said coldly. Martha smiled. I'm simply looking out for the company's best interests. Now I have some suggestions for suitable candidates who might be willing to enter a quick marriage. Get out, Elliot interrupted, his voice deadly quiet. Elliot, get out, he shouted, startling Martha with his intensity. You come into my office after driving away the woman I love, and you think I'll listen to your suggestions. Get out before I have security remove you. Martha gathered her purse, her composure slipping slightly. You're making a mistake, Elliot. Think about your father's legacy. My father wanted me to be happy, Elliot said. Something you've never understood. Now leave. And Martha, consider yourself suspended from the board, effective immediately. You can't do that, she sputtered. Article 7, Section 3, Elliot reminded her. The same clause I used against Whitman. And unlike him, I have proof of your corporate espionage through Patricia's assistant. Martha's face paled. This isn't over, she warned, as she moved to the door. You're right about that, Elliot agreed grimly. It's just beginning. After Martha left, Elliot sat heavily in his chair, the fight draining out of him. Veronica was gone, believing she was protecting him, protecting her brother. How could he find her if she didn't want to be found? His phone buzzed with a text from his head of security. No sign of Mrs. Voss at any of the locations. Her brother's apartment is empty too. Elliot's heart sank. Of course, Veronica would make sure Jamal was safe as well. She would have arranged somewhere for both of them to go, somewhere Martha couldn't use them as leverage. But where? The answer came to him suddenly. Layla, Veronica's cousin, the bakery. It was the one connection Martha might not know about. 20 minutes later, Elliot was pushing through the door of Sweet Dreams Bakery, the bell jingling cheerfully above him. The small shop was empty, except for a young woman behind the counter. Layla, he presumed. We're about to close, she began, then recognized him. Mr. Voss? Where is she? Elliot asked without preamble. Layla's expression closed off. I don't know what you're talking about. Please, Elliot said, his voice softening. I need to find Veronica. She's in trouble. She said you might come, Layla admitted. She told me not to tell you anything. Did she tell you why she left? Elliot asked. Layla hesitated. Something about protecting you and Jamal. She wouldn't give details. Martha threatened her, Elliot explained. My aunt found out about our arrangement and used it to drive Veronica away. She's trying to take control of my company. Layla looked uncertain. That sounds like some serious rich people drama. It is, Elliot agreed, but Veronica is caught in the middle and she doesn't need to be. I can fix this, but I need to talk to her. I don't know, Layla said, still hesitant. Layla, Elliot said quietly, I love her. The simple declaration hung in the air between them. Layla studied his face, searching for signs of deception. For real, not just for the contract. For real, Elliot confirmed. I didn't plan it, but it happened, and I think she might feel the same way. Layla sighed. She's at my mum's place in Queens. It's the address on the delivery receipts. Thank you, Elliot said gratefully. But Mr. Voss, Layla called as he turned to leave. If you hurt her, I don't care how rich you are. I will end you. Despite everything, Elliot smiled. I'd expect nothing less from Veronica's family. Veronica sat on the small bed in Layla's mother's spare room, staring out the window at the rainy street below. It had been 2 days since she'd left the penthouse, 2 days of ignoring Elliot's calls, 2 days of feeling like her heart was being torn apart. Jamal sat beside her, concern etched on his face. "You need to eat something, V." "I'm not hungry," she said, the same response she'd given to every offer of food since arriving. "This isn't right," Jamal insisted. "You should be fighting back, not hiding." "It's not that simple," Veronica said tiredly. "Martha has resources we can't match. She'd destroy all of us. You, me, even Elliot. So you're just giving up. That's not the sister I know." Veronica turned to him, tears in her eyes. "What choice do I have? If I go back, Martha exposes the contract, Elliot loses the company, you lose your mentorship, everything falls apart." "And if you stay away, what then?" Jamal challenged. "You think Elliot is just going to forget about you, move on to the next contract bride?" "He'll be angry at first," Veronica admitted. "But eventually, he'll see it was for the best. He can find someone suitable, someone Martha would approve of. Is that what you want? For him to marry someone else?" The thought sent a sharp pain through Veronica's chest. "What I want doesn't matter." "It matters to me," said a familiar voice from the doorway. Veronica's head snapped up. Elliot stood there, rain dripping from his coat, his hair damp against his forehead. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Elliot," she whispered, her heart racing. "How did you find me?" "Layla," he said simply. "She's very protective of you. But I convinced her. I meant no harm." Jamal stood up. "I'll give you two some privacy," he said, slipping past Elliot with a supportive nod. When they were alone, Elliot moved closer, stopping a few feet from where Veronica sat frozen on the bed. "Your note," he began, his voice rough with emotion. It was a lie, it wasn't a question, but Veronica answered anyway. "I had to go." "Martha." "I know what Martha did," Elliot interrupted. "She told me everything. The threats, the blackmail, using your brother as leverage." Veronica looked down at her hands. "Then you understand why I had to leave. She would have exposed our arrangement. You would have lost the company." "Look at me," Elliot said softly. When she raised her eyes to his, the intensity she found there took her breath away. "I don't care about the company," he said. "Not if it means losing you." "You don't mean that," Veronica argued. "Your father's legacy." "My father wanted me to be happy," Elliot said, echoing his words to Martha. "And you, Veronica Tate, make me happy in ways I didn't even know were possible." He moved closer, kneeling in front of her so they were at eye level. "Our marriage started as a contract," he acknowledged, "but somewhere along the way it became real. At least for me." Veronica's heart pounded in her chest. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I broke the one rule we established," Elliot said, taking her hands in his. "I fell in love with you." Tears filled Veronica's eyes. "Elliot. And I hope that maybe you feel something for me too," he continued. "Something beyond our arrangement." "It doesn't matter how I feel," Veronica insisted, though her voice trembled. "Martha will never stop. She'll use anything to get what she wants." "Martha is suspended from the board," Elliot told her. "I've initiated an investigation into her corporate espionage. She used Patricia's assistant to spy on us, which is highly illegal. But the article, my record, is being addressed," Elliot assured her. "My legal team is preparing a response. Your juvenile record should never have been exposed. We're exploring legal action against the publication." "And the contract?" Veronica asked. "If that becomes public, then it becomes public," Elliot said simply. "Yes, there would be embarrassment, maybe even some business repercussions. But Veronica, I'm willing to risk it all, for you." Veronica searched his face, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. "Why? Why would you do that?" "Because these past few months with you have been the happiest of my life," Elliot said honestly. "Because you see me, not just the CEO, but the real me. Because you leave little drawings that make me smile. Because you taught me how to make pancakes and didn't laugh when I burned them. Because when I'm with you, I feel like I've found home." A tear slipped down Veronica's cheek. "I never meant to fall in love with you," she whispered. "It wasn't part of our deal." Elliot's face lit up with hope. "So you do love me?" "How could I not?" Veronica admitted. You're nothing like I expected. You're kind and thoughtful and surprisingly funny. You remember details about my life that no one else bothers to notice. You got me a scholarship without expecting anything in return. You've helped my brother, defended me to your family." She took a shaky breath. "Yes, Elliot. I love you. That's why I left. To protect you." Elliot reached up to wipe away her tears. "I don't need protection. I need you." He leaned forward, his forehead resting against hers. "Come home, Veronica. Not because of our contract, not because of the money, but because we belong together." "What about Martha, the board, the marriage clause?" "We'll face it all together," Elliot promised. "No more secrets, no more hiding. Just us, building a real life together." "And if we lose?" Veronica asked softly. "Then we lose," Elliot said. "But we'll still have each other, and that's worth more than any company." Veronica looked into his eyes and saw nothing but sincerity and love. Slowly she nodded. "Okay. Okay," Elliot repeated, his expression brightening. "I'll come home," Veronica clarified. "We'll face Martha together." Elliot's smile was radiant as he pulled her into his arms, holding her as if he never wanted to. Let go. When he finally kissed her, it was nothing like their calculated kiss at the benefit. This was real, tender and passionate and full of promise. "I love you, Veronica Tate," he whispered against her lips. "I love you too, Elliot Voss," she replied, her heart finally at peace. 3 weeks later, Veronica stood nervously outside the main conference room at Voss Enterprises. Inside, the board was meeting to discuss the future of the company, and by extension, her future with Elliot. In the days following her return to the penthouse, a lot had happened. Martha had been officially removed from the board, pending investigation. James Whitman had come forward with evidence against her, hoping for leniency in his own case. Patricia's assistant had confessed to spying on Elliot's legal affairs, but most significantly, Elliot had called this special board meeting to address the marriage clause once and for all. The door opened, and David, Elliot's assistant, gestured for her to enter. "They're ready for you, Mrs. Voss." Taking a deep breath, Veronica stepped into the room. The entire board was present, sitting around the large table. Elliot stood at the head, his expression unreadable. "Thank you for joining us, Veronica," he said formally. "The board has some questions for you." One of the older members, a woman named Helen, spoke first. "Mrs. Voss, we understand that your marriage to Elliot began under unusual circumstances." "Yes," Veronica admitted, deciding honesty was the best approach. "We entered into a contract marriage to satisfy the company bylaws." There were a few murmurs around the table, though most had already been briefed on the situation. "And now?" asked another board member. "Is it still just a contract?" Veronica looked at Elliot, drawing strength from his supportive gaze. "No, it's become much more than that. I love my husband and he loves me. What started as an arrangement has grown into something real. Yet the original intent was to circumvent the spirit of the bylaws," Helen pointed out, "to technically satisfy the requirement without the genuine commitment it was meant to ensure." "That's true," Veronica acknowledged. "But I'd argue that we've ended up fulfilling both the letter and the spirit of the clause. Elliot is married to someone who truly cares about him and supports him, not for his money or power, but for who he is." "An interesting perspective," Helen said, though her expression remained neutral. Elliot stepped forward. "Board members, I called this meeting not just to address the past, but to propose a change for the future. The marriage clause was established by my father in a different era, with different values. While I understand and respect his intentions, I believe it's time for Voss Enterprises to move forward." He distributed documents to each member. "I'm proposing we amend the bylaws to remove the marriage requirement for the CEO position. A person's marital status should not determine their ability to lead this company." The board members reviewed the proposal, exchanging glances. "And if we refuse?" asked one of the more conservative members. Elliot's expression was resolute. "Then I will resign as CEO effective immediately." Shocked murmurs filled the room. Veronica stared at Elliot in disbelief. They hadn't discussed this possibility. "You would give up the company?" Helen asked incredulously. If forced to choose between this company and my marriage, my real marriage, not the contract we began with, then yes, I choose Veronica, Elliot said firmly. My father built this company to create a legacy. But a legacy isn't just about business success. It's about values, about happiness, about love. He moved to stand beside Veronica, taking her hand. I've found all of that with my wife, and I won't sacrifice it, not even for Voss Enterprises. The room fell silent as the board members absorbed his words. Finally, Helen spoke. I've known you since you were a boy, Elliot. I worked with your father for 20 years, and I can tell you, he would be proud of the man you've become. She looked at the document, then at the couple standing hand in hand. I move that we accept the amendment to the bylaws. I second, said another member quickly. One by one, the board voted. When the final tally was announced, unanimous in favor, Elliot squeezed Veronica's hand tightly. Thank you, he told the board. Your faith in me and us means more than I can express. After the meeting concluded, Elliot and Veronica walked through the building together, his arm around her waist. You would have really resigned, she asked, still amazed by his declaration. In a heartbeat, Elliot confirmed, you're more important than any company. That's a big change from the man who offered me $2 million for a fake marriage. Veronica teased gently. Elliot smiled. You changed me, Veronica Tate, for the better. As they reached his office, David approached with an urgent message. Sir, Sweet Dreams Bakery is on line 1. Something about an investment opportunity, Elliot. And Veronica exchanged a look. I'll take it, Elliot said. Inside his office, he put the call on speaker so Veronica could hear. Layla, it's Elliot Voss. I understand you wanted to discuss an investment. Yes, Layla's voice came through clearly. I've been thinking about expanding the bakery, opening a second location, but I need capital. And you thought of me, Elliot asked, a smile playing at his lips. Well, you are family now, Layla said pragmatically, and I figured you owe me for helping you find Veronica that day. Elliot laughed. You make a compelling point. Send over your business plan, and we'll talk details. There's one more thing, Layla added. I want Veronica to be co-owner. She's been the backbone of our delivery service for years, and she deserves a stake in the business. Veronica gasped softly, touched by her cousin's gesture. I think that's an excellent idea, Elliot agreed. In fact, I insist on it. After the call ended, Veronica turned to Elliot with tears in her eyes. You don't have to do this. I want to, Elliot said simply. You've supported your family for years. Now it's time for you to build something of your own. Between the bakery and your design school, you're going to be a very busy woman, Mrs. Voss. I can handle it, Veronica said confidently. As long as I have you. Always, Elliot promised, pulling her into his arms. 1 month later, the story of Elliot and Veronica's unusual beginning hit the press, but not in the way Martha had threatened. Instead, Elliot gave an exclusive interview to a respected business journal, openly discussing how their arrangement had begun and how it had transformed into real love. My wife saved more than my company, he told the interviewer. She saved my life, my soul. She showed me what really matters. The public response was surprisingly positive. People loved the modern fairy tale aspect, the powerful CEO and the delivery girl finding unexpected love. The business community respected Elliot's honesty and his willingness to reform outdated corporate practices. Martha, facing multiple legal charges for corporate espionage and blackmail, left the country rather than face prosecution. The scandal barely touched Voss Enterprises, which thrived under Elliot's continued leadership. Jamal excelled in his mentorship program and was offered a permanent position in the company's tech division. Veronica divided her time between design, school, the bakery expansion, and her continued work at the community center where Elliot had established a foundation to support arts education for underprivileged children. As for their marriage, the contract that had started it all was ceremonially torn up on their first anniversary. In its place, Elliot and Veronica wrote their own agreement, not legal or binding, but heartfelt promises to support each other, believe in each other, and love each other through whatever challenges life might bring. They renewed their vows, in a small ceremony on the rooftop of Layla's newly expanded bakery. Unlike their first wedding at City Hall, this one was filled with genuine emotion and surrounded by their chosen family, Jamal, Layla, the community center kids, even some of the board members who had come to respect and admire Veronica as they danced under string lights with the city skyline as their backdrop. Veronica rested her head on Elliot's chest. "I was never just the delivery girl," she whispered. Elliot tilted her chin up, looking into her eyes with all the love in his heart. "You were the answer to a prayer I was too proud to ask." And as they kissed, surrounded by the people they loved, both knew that their unusual beginning had led to the most perfect ending, or rather, the most perfect new beginning. For Veronica and Elliot Voss, what had started as a business contract had become the most valuable asset of all. A love that was real, honest, and stronger than any corporate bylaw could ever demand. The end.